And Ryan Nugent-Hopkins last night, Dregs, celebrating his 1,000th National Hockey League game. He scores early in the game. The place goes crazy. And I was thinking about it last night. Like if you were to look up going about your business in a dictionary, I feel like there'd be a picture of the last 15 years of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, wouldn't there?
Yeah, for sure. And just to back it up a little bit, how about the warm-up? I mean, that was fantastic. Yeah. And I didn't scour through all the clips and whatnot in post-game. I mean, who's the architect of that? I mean, there had to have been one individual, whether it's McDavid or somebody else, who said, hey, yeah, we need to do something, but let's get creative here. Let's think a little bit outside the box.
It was funny.
And I mean, that's not something that just happens organically, right? I mean, they would watch Nuge and his warm-up routine and all that. They've seen it 1,000 times. So it's probably not that hard to mimic. But for everyone to execute it in the fashion that they did,
straight-faced as well.
Yeah, that's the thing.
They sold it really well.
Yeah, when they went over to do the baby powder thing, they were all just like, all business. So it was perfect.
And RNH is standing at the bench, right? And he's doing what he always does. And then he finally clicks in. Okay, I get it now. Oh my God, I watched it 5 times. That's sensational. I love that kind of stuff because so often, we chirp NHL players because they're so guarded and they don't have personality. Yeah. All right, well, they don't have to stand in front of the cameras and the microphones and tell jokes. You have to take what you can get. And in this case, just a tremendous show of support. And look, I mean, that's the acknowledgement of a player who's been incredibly important to this organization for a long, long time. As I'm watching it last night, I'm thinking to myself, historically, when you think of the best complementary players, and at times Nuge has been a star in the National Hockey League. He has, and his numbers would back that up. But he's so comfortable in the role that he can and is expected and almost always plays, right? There are nights where he's the star of the game. And then there are other nights where, all right, oh, geez, that was a quiet 2 points. Yeah. Or he makes a real good play defensively or any of that. Historically, when you look at the great Edmonton Oilers teams, it wasn't always about Gretzky and Messier and Coffey and Curry and Anderson and go down the list. I mean, we could sit here all day and talk about, all the impact players. You have to have high quality support guys. And that's, for me, what Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is. He doesn't get enough credit across the NHL. He does in your market because you guys can appreciate what he brings to the team on and off the ice. Just as important. Off the ice is just as important as on the ice. But it's nice when good guys like Nuge get recognized for what they've accomplished. But the end of this for me is, damn, I'm getting old.
I know.
I can remember this guy getting drafted, and I'm like, holy Jesus.
Yeah, I was there at his draft games. Covering it for the old radio station in 15 years. Come on, man. I got that feeling last night when I was sitting there watching the ceremony with my wife and my kids. And when I went to cover that draft, my wife and I hadn't even been married yet. And it was like, my God.
And Rashog had a full flow back then.
The bald spot had not yet emerged. You're right. That's true.
Obviously, Nuge and 1,000 overshadows. I mean, we could talk about goaltending. I mean, it's back-to-back shutouts now for the Oilers. I wanted your thoughts, too. Zach Hyman, a quiet 2 goals and an assist, continuing to knock on that Olympic door. What else does he have to do at this point, Darren?
They need a couple guys to get injured. That's what he needs.
I guess, eh?
Yeah, so do you guys as a media gaggle have this massive group chain that you all fire back and forth? Because I get a text from Ryan Rashog last night. Yeah, I'm just cleaning up, watching the Rams and the Bears game. Yeah. And, now I'm waiting for the post game to see how sour and disappointed the Bears are and all of that stuff. Ding! There's Ryan Rashog. And well, hold on. Let me see if I can read it for you guys. I mean, is essentially, Eric, what you just said.
We as a market, I will say this: we do love Zach.
Yeah. Right. He goes. This was at 10:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hyman playing his way into the mix. 17 goals in his last 20. So that's what I get from Ryan at 10:45 Eastern.
Most goals in the league since December 11th.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, look, it's and people want to automatically gravitate to the relationship and the chemistry with Connor McDavid, right? And go, well, we could see that on the Olympic stage. Why can't Doug Armstrong and Hockey Canada brass see that? And of course they do. But again, I guess what I'm reminded of is what Doug Armstrong said when they unveiled the master list of the roster, a couple of weeks back. And that was, if there's an injury, inevitably there will be injuries. Our plan is to replace that player with a similar type of skill set, a similar player. Okay, so now we're talking about Brayden Point. Is he going to be back in time? Unlikely, doubtful, I would say. And so then you look at, okay, well, in terms of the reserve list, and you're looking at Wyatt Johnson, you're looking at Sam Bennett, you're looking at Mark Scheifele, maybe Connor Bedard. And I would say that Zach Hyman, yes, has played his way into the conversation. But when we were about to go to air, I asked somebody involved in the decision-making process on that Wednesday, was Hyman ever seriously in the conversation? And I was told, no, not really. Now, that was then, and this is now. Mm-hmm. And time can change. And there's a healthy respect for how Zach plays the game.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's a workhorse out there, right? And he does a little bit of everything, and the majority of it he does very, very well. I can't imagine that he's not in the conversation, but if we take management at its word, and Ray Ferraro talked about this on the podcast last week, Wyatt Johnson is probably the best replacement, if you're talking about a skill set, to Brayden Point. Not saying that's the direction they're going to go. If they do, would it be viewed as a double snub on Sam Bennett?
Yeah.
The good thing is Zach still has runway left. So does every other player that's on this reserve list. They don't have to make any decisions until they're about to get the games going in Italy. So he has to be playing his way into the conversation. I just, if they stay true to form 1-1, then for me and for many others, including Ray Ferraro, Wyatt Johnson would be a better fit for Brayden Point. But hey, fellas, there'll be injuries still, right? There's going to be stuff that happens, unfortunately, knock on wood, that doesn't, but that's the expectation. So in that event, sure, he could be in the mix.
Darren Dreger with us. He's on our Firehouse Subs hotline. I know Rick wants to get to that Andersson trade, and we'll go there. But just quickly on the Oilers, one more here. Yeah. And, at the beginning of the year, it's Skinner and Pickard, and we got people texting in being like, they need to do what Colorado did and change both goalies. And then this weekend, you get a shutout from Tristan Jarry. Then you get a shutout from Ingram. Ingram has been statistically the best of the three since he's been called up. But the Oilers have put themselves in what I would describe as probably a better than okay position between the pipes right now.
So good, right? And it's what you hope for, but it's also why general managers don't overreact or get too excited when you don't have a legit bona fide number one, a proven number one. And then it becomes goaltending by committee. And injury also obviously influences that, right? But Stan Moman saw enough in both Skinner and in Jarry to feel like change for the sake of change was at least worthy of a try, okay? That doesn't mean that Tristan Jarry is now going to take the ball and run with it. You hope that that's the case. We've talked about this before. I remember when Ingram was first brought into the organization, Noodles just said, hey, Jamie McLennan, there's a strong chance this guy is going to be the Oilers goalie. He's that good. Now, that's a goalie who's got a keen eye for goaltending, recognizing that, again, the toolbox of Connor Ingram is loaded. And now he has some opportunity. And then you throw Cal Pickard in the mix. And it's a good story today, but we in Canada like to chew on goaltenders. It's almost like a part-time job for us in the media, in the markets where the goaltending isn't stable. So, I mean, if you need Exhibit A, check out the noise in Ottawa right now around the crease, right? So for now, it's one of the strengths of the Oilers, and that's saying a lot. But let's check back in a week or two and see where they're at.
And then the deal, Darren, as Dusty mentioned, Rasmus Andersson from Calgary to Vegas, 50% retained as well. Just your thoughts on everything surrounding the deal. I mean, how much does this bump Vegas up? The return that Calgary got, the 50%. I mean, Kelly McCrimmon again doing what he does in the NHL.
Yeah, people assume he just lays in the weeds and lets the players just come to him. Well, that's obviously not the case. The Vegas Golden Knights have strength in ownership. The owner just wants to win a Stanley Cup every year. Every owner does, but in this case, he's like, you do whatever you have to do. And he's talking about Kellen McCrimmon and Georgia McPhee. You want to juggle the salary cap on an annual basis. Fill your boots. You've got full support. You can spend whatever you need to spend to make that happen. And Vegas, for a myriad of reasons, is a destination of choice for the players, for their families, and most importantly, because you feel like you can contend for a Stanley Cup every single year. So, yeah, McCrimmon was probably in earlier than most. Put the parameters of what he was comfortable putting in play in front of Craig Conroy. They have a history in making big trades, Conroy and McCrimmon. And then he just sat back and said, okay, well, the player, Claude Lemieux, the agent, Craig Conroy, you sift through all of the other interests and let's see where the chips fall, right? And then as we learned from Craig Conroy yesterday, Rasmus Andersson through Claude Lemieux tells Craig Conroy, I'm not going to sign anywhere. So sorry, Boston, you invested a ton of time and energy into putting the pieces of a trade together, but I'm just not comfortable making my future decision at this point. I think we can all respect that. Other than if you're Don Sweeney and the Boston Bruins, you're probably a little pissed off because of all the time and energy you invested in all of this. But then at that point, Conroy looks at what he has, and what he has from Vegas is a pretty good deal. And it is. Zach Whitecloud's a good defenseman. He's a big, strong guy, can move the puck. Beloved in Vegas, by the way. There's a prospect piece in Abram Wiebe with UND. Uncertainty as to where he's going to end up in the National Hockey League, but still a piece that caught the eye of Conroy. And then you've got two juicy draft picks, a first in 27 and a conditional second that turns to a first if Vegas wins a Stanley Cup. And oh, by the way, Calgary retains 50%. Yeah. So the Vegas Golden Knights are in a better salary cap position today than they were prior to making the trade.
Yeah, with the Whitecloud deal going out, they're actually saving money on the cap here. Right?
Yeah, McNabb comes back, and now they're saving money in the bigger picture. So just a master class in management yet again by the Vegas Golden Knights.
I know we got to wrap, but I'm curious. What's next for Calgary, Drakes? Let's just wrap with that. Like, where are you? Do they unload a couple more guys, or is this sort of the big one and now they just sit back?
No, there's a buzz around Blake Coleman, and of course every player is tradable, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the reality of their situation. I think they like the look of keeping Blake Coleman and Backlund because you're not taking it down to the wood. You need good players, culture type of players who can still play at a high level to help you through that process. And that's how they look at Coleman, and that's how they look at Michael Backlund. I'm looking at Nazem Kadri. That's where I'm looking. And he wants to go to a top contender. Certainly there's nothing imminent. It would take a real good return. But for me, it was always Rasmus Andersson 1 and Nazem Kadri 2 on the trade list there.
Drags, good stuff, man. When's the next episode of the podcast drop?
Yeah, unless I hear otherwise, it should be Tuesday. So tomorrow and likely Thursday.
Excellent. Good stuff, man. Enjoy your week, and we'll catch up with you next Monday.
All right. As always, thank you, guys.
There you go. That is Darren Dreger. Trev joins us on the Firehouse Subs hotline, and the Oilers have won 2 in a row. They go back-to-back over the weekend, which means they have unlocked the Firehouse Subs hot streak.
I like the unlocked.
Medium brisket hat trick sub for just $8.99.
Jari has a key, Ingram has a key.
That's
and
it.
they both put it in and turn it at the same time.
And they turn it together. And it opens up and there's a medium hat trick brisket just sitting there. That's a great idea. $8.99 for the medium. I think you're saving like $4 on this thing at all Firehouse Sub locations across Edmonton. And there's 15 of them.